Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. I hope that each of you have had a wonderful holiday, and I really hope that you had a great weekend. You know, so much is going on these days, and I'd be remiss if I didn't just talk about some of it. Thank you all for wishing me a Happy New Year, those who have not seen, and those who I have seen. Hey, you know what's going on here. But our country is in the midst of really a turnaround. And in regards as to what people think, and this is not political, it's like that everybody now just needs to breathe, to breathe. And to breathe simply means that we need to bring down our anxiety levels. We need to bring down the expectational level. We need to bring down a whole lot of stuff. I mean, and many of us have grieved during this whole 4-year or in the recent weeks. And you all have seen the news, the attack on the Capitol and so forth. And we all can agree that we think it was horrendous. I do think it's time for us to sit back now and to reflect. Now, when I say sit back, I don't mean sit back and do nothing. I'm talking about reflecting on our families, reflecting on the ones we've lost, our loved ones, and really reflecting on our lives. I do want to share with you all that, my son had a situation on his job today, which is very concerning to me. And I shared with him, no job is worth losing your life over. No job. Nothing. I want to share with the followers, if you're working on a job that's causing you undue stress and causing you to have to go to the hospital and anxiety, you're no good to anyone dead. And that is a higher force telling you that since you don't have sense enough to leave it, I'll help you leave. So I'm going to share with you all, I'm very concerned for him. Yeah, he'll be okay. And, but the point is that don't let situations drive you to the point of heart attacks. Don't let situations drive you to a point of you're so upset where your whole body responds to it. So that's my mental health moment, Jackie, for tonight. I mean,
well, I can relate to that one directly, Dr. Miles. Yeah. And I second every sentiment and thought you expressed. No job is worth your sanity or worth your peace. It is a sign that it is time, to consider some changes and start looking for your next journey, because it's not meant to be that way.
And just think, if you didn't have that supervisor who nagged you to death, you would never be prompted to leave that job, because oftentimes we see jobs as our source when our jobs are a resource. Amen. So people, when you talk about my job is killing me, literally, don't allow that to happen. Don't allow it to happen. Right. And don't expect people, Jackie, don't expect people to honor your gifts. Sometimes
or to be able to make those decisions for you.
Right. Sometimes
you know what's going on. Right.
Sometimes you're in the wrong place. Sometimes you're highly credentialed and you are more advanced, and the people where you work at can't even use computers. You're in the wrong place.
Right. It's time to move on. You've received what you needed to receive, and those are signs. I wholeheartedly agree. From life experience, they are signs that it's time to move forward.
If you're working in a job where you're more experienced than your supervisor, and they trying to tell you what to do, and they're all wrong, that's a sign you need to start planning to lead people.
And they're threatened by you. That's the biggest issue, because you can't grow. They're not going to grow. And so that's stagnation, and that's not the purpose of any experience. So
and Jackie, they would never acknowledge your gifts.
I'm not capable of doing so.
You're always in the way. So I got my little announcements out the way. I have a few more, and I think we're all very excited about this. And we'll get into our topic in a few minutes. Jackie and I are very excited about, we're starting some things for young people. It's going to be on Saturdays, and it's going to start January the 30th. One is called Male Talk. This is for young people between the ages of 12 to 18 years of age, and it's part of our Male Youth Development Center. These meetings are designed to assist male youth with understanding their development. We'll also discuss relevant life issues and answer any questions they may have. Some topics, Jackie, we're going to be talking about. We're giving ourselves a commercial break. Surviving virtual school. They all need that. Gaming, YouTuber, transitioning from boyhood to manhood, sex, understanding purpose, life skills, your values. Is school boring you and why? Dating, music, dating, puberty, and this is just a few of them. And we are going to say that we're going to have guest hosts every week. We also have one for females, and it is called Girlfriends, and it's for female youth between the age of 12 to 18 years of age. It's part of the Mary M. Wilson Female Youth Development Center. Some of the same topics. We're going to actually debut this on January the 30th, and the girls will have their Zoom session beginning at 1 o'clock. And the boys will have their Zoom session beginning at 2 o'clock. You'll get more information later on about this right here. We're just trying to get the information out to y'all because the young people have been saying, what about us? When are you going to talk to us? And Jackie, they wanted their topic to be, I don't understand. They said, no, their topic is going to be parents. I don't understand where they're coming from. So we'll send the announcements out to all of you all. And so share this with any young person who is between the age of 12 to 18 years of age. And Jackie, I think we do have a parent advisory on this. We say these sessions are unfiltered. Our approach is working with youth. It is in honesty and in language relevant to their generation. All sessions will be presented by professionals who have experience in working with you. If you are a person who think you do well with us, please contact us. We're talking about volunteerism. We ain't paying you. So volunteerism. We're going to have these youth sessions every Saturday. We're going to start out every Saturday. So we'll see how that works out. So if you're a volunteer female who has some female things you want to talk about to young people, let us know. Please inbox us and we'll get back with you on that. And for men, if you have some ideas, if you'd like to host the show, we have several young people who want to host. They're in their 20s, and it scared me a little bit. I just want to make sure
they have a message for you, Dr. Miles.
I just want to make sure they all agree with our values, and we don't find ourselves in a situation. But you and I will monitor, Jack, and we will monitor, make sure the kids are getting something good.
Well, so, and I want to say that I'm very excited about the sessions we'll be having with young girls. I know that we will get some volunteers because I know that there are members of our community who understand the responsibility we have to the next generation. So these are really things that I call community-based education. These are things you're not going to get in school. This is our responsibility, and we look forward to offering these sessions.
Great. So don't forget, you'll get notices through via Instagram. And folks, we are trying to increase our Instagram followers. Please share with your friends. For foster parents who are on tonight, we welcome you. We're only going to issue letters once a month. So it's up to you to document the session that you're attending. And foster parents, guess what? You're getting 2 hours for 1 hour of coming on our on our Instagram. Jackie, isn't that wonderful?
It's amazing. And that, to me, that speaks to just how relevant and important our topics are. So you're going to get double credit for it. Don't miss them.
So we're doing some great things around the country. I'm really excited about that, real excited. Well, Jackie, kind of interesting, the topic tonight. You know, people have been really buzzing the phone off and saying, what are you doing? You're talking about sex and you're talking about masturbation and talking about all these things. And I'm saying, everyone relax. Let me share with you why I thought about this topic. I didn't really think about it. It was brought to me. In my therapy practice, Jackie, single females are thinking their male children are insane. Because they're catching them masturbating. Oh I'm talking about it's going as far as installing cameras and calling me to say, I caught him last night. I'm very serious about this. And I just said, and the parents started thinking that something is wrong with me because I'm saying it's part of normal development. And they're saying, not in our church. And I'm saying, wait, see,
okay,
masturbating
Dr.
in the
Miles,
church?
I have to tell you, you caught me with that one. For people, especially adults, to not understand that masturbation is a very natural process, and perhaps we should be a little concerned if it's not happening. That is a surprise, I have to say.
Well, the thing about it, it's according to how people are raised. It's also according to spirituality, what they believe. And we're going to get into a whole lot of not just masturbation, but about teen male sexuality and what that really is all about. And I know, Jackie, I know you're looking forward to us doing the same thing for females. We have that plan. You want to talk a little about that?
Well, yeah, we just, some of the things that we'll be, some of the topics we'll be covering, like what is it? the role of parents, the same as we're going to do tonight, actually.
Exactly.
You know, is it harmful? And as you mentioned, there's so many myths out there about it. But you know,
Right.
it's one thing to talk about male sexuality. When it comes to females, Dr.
Yeah.
Miles, I mean, it's a whole other conversation because
It
women aren't
really is.
supposed to have any such feelings or desires. So I don't know that there's ever been a conversation about, you know, female self-pleasuring and masturbation. So I just think these things are very important. Parents, you know, the job of parenting is huge, and there's not a guide. And so I feel like this series is certainly going to help parents in this area, and it's just vital. I spoke with a parent today myself, and one of the things that we realized is that youth are exposed, are sexually exposed at very young ages. This is not something where you can actually wait till they're 12. So parents need to know how to approach these topics. Parents have to become comfortable with the
Exactly.
topic. As you mentioned, the way people have been raised. I mean, there's some people who think you never discuss sex with your children. So I think this is going to be a huge community service, the series on teen sexuality, and I look forward to all of them.
Okay, let's jump into it, folks. You know,
Okay.
I've given you the reason as to why I'm having this topic. And it's kind of interesting that as adults, we don't want to approach these kind of areas, and we don't want to approach mine so sensitive. I'm saying so sensitive, but guess what? We're human beings. And part of our human development is human sexuality. You know, you can't get past that. One thing that Jackie said was very clear, and people, we're not talking about things we're thinking. In the practice I'm in with therapy, Jackie, when I talk to young people, they're reporting as early as age 7 that they're seeing porn.
Oh, I mean, Dr. Miles, I had a personal experience with my own children in private school. Whether it's conversation, of course, cell phones are everywhere. And so I've seen them exposed as early as 5. And certainly, you know, younger children who might have older siblings, let's say 7, 8, 9, and 10. So it is in the household, you know, good or bad, but there is an opportunity to bring your child up in a way that these things are normal and that they have the right information, because misinformation is dangerous, and that is very common where children are getting their information about their sexuality.
Well, you know, you say good or bad, but I'm going to share with you, and our research shows there's a whole lot of good coming out of it versus bad. And we're going to talk about diagnosing children who are overly sexually stimulated. So there are some. We're going to clear all those myths up. We're going to clear it up and deal with really some hard things, well, some interesting things tonight. So at this point, we're going to jump into it. Jackie, interestingly, how about studies show that parents who talk about sexuality and masturbation, it really enhances the child's development. They then begin to delay having sexual intercourse, and if they do, they're more apt to use condoms.
You know, and Dr. Mouse, for me, that follows advice on parents talking to children about a number of things. You know, drugs and relationships. When children hear things from their parents early on, believe it or not, they do trust, but they also feel informed, and therefore they don't have to go out and get the information on the street and from other places. So that those studies don't surprise me. I just hope our parents believe us, that you do have an impact, and if it starts with you, your child is going to have a much healthier relationship with those issues.
Yeah, I do want to throw this out, and this is not for sensationalism. I've had 2 parents, females, who said, if he's doing that, not in my house. It's almost like the gay thing. It's like, no, you're not going to be masturbating in my house. I'm saying, like, why is that such a focus? What kind of traumas did that parent have where they're so focused on, and when I say focus, Jackie, I'm talking about as far as getting cameras, which I think is a violation of that child's privacy. It's also a violation of his development.
My question is, why is the parent so focused and even aware of when a child is or is not masturbating? That, you know, that's an issue that should be discussed, because of course everyone deserves privacy, and when you start getting into your teens and your early teens, yeah, that's a violation,
Well,
to have cameras on a
Jack,
child.
does it make sense though that, like, if you're in your teens, right, that means your body's emitting more hormones. It's emitting the male hormones and female hormones. And when hormones are emitted, your body is going to get its dose of testosterone. Am I correct?
Yeah,
And so
you know, Dr.
with that,
Miles, I'm wondering, do they think that, you know, sexuality is something that comes on at 21?
well, no, some people see sexuality as evil.
But they have
Anything,
a child.
anything done with sex. Well, they even have the perimeters on that. Well, if you have sex with and you're married, it ain't no sin. But and that's the thing that parents are dealing with, and they're putting these beliefs with their children, and what they're creating are children who grow up to be adults who have abnormal sexual desires and will not desire an intimacy with a partner.
Right. And
And
it's
feel
because they've
guilt.
come up in homes where this was not a normal thing. So you've explored it in
Yes.
non-traditional ways. And so that becomes your norm. I
And they
mean,
had when
and
kids have to sneak and do stuff. Yeah.
exactly. When you have to sneak and do it, especially in those formative years, that becomes your more normal, acceptable way. And sometimes it's hard to transition to a normal and healthy relationships.
Well, one thing you said in our beginning, you said that parents have to feel comfortable. And Jackie, I'm not talking about feeling comfortable. Get the right information. Don't go off the top of your head talking about what somebody told you, like it caused you to go blind and all that kind of stuff. People, those are myths, and it's wrong. And we're going to talk about some of those myths tonight. But it's important that parents become educated on teen sexuality. It's kind of interesting to me. Don't use your experience now. Don't oh, I got experience. No.
Right. First of all, your children aren't you. There's always the issue of different genders, and the experiences are vastly different, I would suggest, from men and women. But Dr. Mouse, is also a repetitive message for us. Right. We research the cars we buy. We research our cell phones. We research insurances. But we're not doing any research on raising our children or educating our children. What sort of books are in your home? Like, how are you spending your time? Or do you really think you're going to be able to raise your children just off the top of your head? So most certainly, and this is something that I advise in my other practices, this should happen from the time you conceive. You should start looking at what to expect at 0, and at 1 week, and 1 month, and 2 months, and 6 months, and 1 year, and 2 years. And certainly by the time you're looking at a child going into adolescent, looking for resources and looking up information should be, commonplace. And keep in mind, Dr. Miles, we didn't have the internet to do that back in the day. It was always a hard copy book that you had to access. I can say that there are some wonderful magazine subscriptions. Dr. Miles, you have a book, as a matter of fact, that is phenomenal. But parents do need to research.
We're actually going to use that book as part of the training for Male Talk. But the parents have a phenomenal responsibility to help shape their child's. Now, I'm going to not use the word child. I'm going to use their youth, because we're talking about youth 12 to 18. But as you said, it begins much sooner than that. Jack, it's amazing. If I were to video parents talking about teen male, let's say with the males, teen male sexuality, you'd be shocked. Because I had parents that even practice. The kids tell me what their parents say. The boys tell me that when the parents start talking, they start giggling because the parents act like they're confused.
And that happens. Dr. Miles, you really just gave me an idea for the foundation, and perhaps we need to have some workshops where parents can practice and parents can ask questions about parents, because this is a very serious and a very important topic. Think about it, parents. This affects your child for the rest of their life. You're talking about something that, is going on, and I'm going to say as early as 7 and 8 and 5 and 6. And if it's not done correctly, it's going to create unhealthy relationships and situations for a lifetime.
Well, Jackie, they could start by not calling the boy's penis a sausage, and a kiwi and pinky wee and all that kind of stuff. I mean, be comfortable with what it is. It is a penis. And children know when you are uncomfortable. I just don't, I'm not gonna say I don't understand. I do understand why some parents are uncomfortable, especially women who are trying to raise boys.
Because it's been passed down.
Exactly.
From generation to generation. And
so
to your point, they don't have the right information.
Call it the right name. You have the perfect opportunity to teach children healthy and to be in healthy and respectful relationships. We're not just talking about sex. We're talking about developing and having healthy development.
And that starts with a comfortableness with themselves, which again is very much connected to how the parents in their lives approach it.
Yeah, it is so important, people, because don't forget, your children will mirror what you do. Now, as for women who are single women who have boys, not just single women, some married women, the male's not there. He don't feel comfortable talking about it because men don't feel comfortable talking to their boys about manhood. Some men, some men.
Very common.
So make sure that you use your communication skills and make sure you get a comfort level. Don't be saying, well, I can't talk about that. Let me bring somebody else in. And y'all confuse the child. Then he gets anxiety about his own body.
And Dr. Mouse, what about, you know, when you have to have the conversation after something negative has happened, right? Well, because we're not being proactive about these conversations. So by all means, every parent has to get comfortable with this, do it early, and be prepared. And hopefully tonight will help a lot of parents start that process.
Jackie, our boys, and we talk about the girls, Jackie, they're worse off, but I'm gonna talk about the boys tonight.
Right,
Jackie,
right.
Our boys, I had a 12-year-old just yesterday tell me that, understand now, our children the kids I work with are in therapy. Mm-hmm. So this kid tells me, because he's been accused of something, mm-hmm. He said, I thought that babies come out of the woman's rectum. Where does it come from? But he's been accused of some sexual, I'm saying.
And he doesn't even know. Right.
So parents have not talked to him, are not taught, because he doesn't have the information. He thinks he is being sexual, but guess what? He doesn't have a clue. And it's bad, I think, Jackie, for parents, and I'm not judging parents, it is bad for them to have a male child or any child, and that child's confused about his body.
Right. And Dr. Mouse, to your point, we can start using the right terminology early on so that it's really no different than arm or leg. I mean, you know, children start using their penises and then their vaginas when they arrive. You know, children pee. You know, it doesn't have to be complicated, and it doesn't always have to be sexual. It is education. It is awareness.
Check it. Boys are asking me, what do I mean by erection? 14 years old. Mm-hmm. I'm saying, like, and so now I talk to parents. I ask the parents, especially when a teen male, I said, well, I have a question for you. I said, have you had, you know, the puberty talk with him? Nope. I said, well, in our treatment, do you mind if I go over those things with him? A child today said, I said, are you going through puberty? He's 13. He said, what does that mean? I said, well, your body begins to get the secondary male characteristics with hair. He said, oh, I got hair everywhere, a lot of it. And I said, but he had no idea, Jackie, why it was happening.
Well, you also know, Dr.
He has no idea.
They're not covering that in school anymore, too. Remember they used to have sex ed in school?
Well, yeah, they did, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it probably wasn't as thorough as it needed to be, but I don't even see that anymore. And again, by the time some people do get it, which I don't know if it's in middle school or high school, but it's kind of late, very late.
Okay, where we are, I'm going to keep giving you some anecdotes. So why is it that a parent tells a child, your penis is showing or your hormone is showing? When checking boys who are going through puberty, they are known to get as many as 20 erections a night. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean it's sexual.
Right.
It's just normal. Right. It's just normal. Right. And so for men to tell boys, anytime this happens, you're supposed to go and have sex. Right. That's wrong. Right. Because he can't possibly have sex 20 times a night. So the key is to make sure that we understand our teens' body and teen sexuality and be comfortable with that. Yes. You can't talk to the child if you ain't comfortable.
Right. And that's going to happen a lot. I want to talk to Dr. Miles. In some of our research, we're seeing a lot of parents approach this from the negative aspects. Mm-hmm. You know, they talk about the risky sexual behaviors. And when they do that, I think it's important to mention that they're coming from it from a purely sexual concept versus an educational concept of sexuality. There's a big difference between sex and sexuality.
Exactly.
And so when you approach your child with just a negative, risky behavior, sexual conversation, then you're making sex this negative thing in their lives, and you're missing the whole other side of a developing body as well as healthy sexual relationships. So we really want to encourage parents to be very careful about that.
Well, Jackie, one of our followers said that it's way too late to start in middle school. Way too late.
Listen, I experienced that working at a community program.
Mhm.
And it was an education for me at the time that 7, 8, and 9 year olds were making appointments for, what they now call hookups. Um,
Mhm.
Parents out working. That's another thing. Kids who may be home with an older sibling. So they are exposed. The sooner you can normalize it with a conversation, the better.
Right.
And in
Can
doing
I?
that, Dr. Miles, do you want me to go ahead with some of the things that parents should be covering?
Yeah, let's do the role of the parent.
The role of the parent.
Yes. Cool.
Okay. So, the role of the parent, as a parent, you have the opportunity to have discussions with your teen. And again, we're gonna say, and preteens, about other related topics. You can talk about healthy, respectful relationships. Very important. You can communicate your own expectations for your teen about relationships and sex. Now, a lot of parents are afraid of this, but again, your kids will listen to you, and at least they know your expectations. Provide factual information about ways to prevent HIV, STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, and pregnancy. You can talk about abstinence, talk about condoms and contraceptives, and testing. You know, where would you rather your child hear it? Dr.
Can I
Miles?
throw something in, Jackie? This is sticking with where you are at. A child today said that he is now 12 years old. He said that he has had sex with 5 girls,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that he knows what sex is, so he described it to me. He said his mother said, "Boy, you are really a little Casanova." Now,
Wow.
was that appropriate?
That was not appropriate. It was really encouraging the objectification of women, and to say that you're Casanova with a child who probably doesn't even know, first of all, the reference of that term, but two, what he's actually engaging in, again, is a missed opportunity for a parent to have a real conversation about his sexuality. And did you say he was 12?
12. He said
And they thought it was
he said he
appealing
understands
to
what it
have
is.
quote unquote been with 5 different girls.
Right.
Okay.
Now, this is kind of interesting. I'm not going to get diverted, but our faithful father said that he said that maybe we should consider having a parenting class before the girls' session. So my conversation to him is that if he'll conduct it, I'll have it. But
and,
but
and,
that's a
and
good
I'll
idea,
help.
though.
Again, I do think it's important, Dr.
Yeah.
Miles. We
Hmm.
do need to have, like I said, those workshops and really give them some examples.
Right.
We're telling parents do this and do that, but we need to sit and practice with them and give some real examples.
Good
Another
idea.
thing, we could parents can focus on the benefits of protecting oneself from HIV and STDs
Hmm.
and pregnancies. Again, so many lost opportunities to help your child develop a very healthy sexuality. Provide information about where your teen can speak with a provider and receive sexual health services. Again, maybe you're not comfortable talking about it, then give them some options. Allow your child access to people they may feel comfortable talking with in case they're not comfortable talking to you. That's also a great way to be a helpful and effective parent.
Yeah, I do want to share that. We're talking, for those of viewers who just came in, we're talking about teen sexuality, boys, and we're talking about the full gambit of human sexuality, but we're kind of talking about masturbation. And the reason we're talking about that is because in my practice, I hear it a lot, and a lot of single females are saying, that ain't gonna be happening, and he better find something else to do because it ain't happening in my house. But yeah, I do want to say that, Jackie, as you agreed, the research showing that it helps. It doesn't hurt. Now, there are some points when it becomes a problem. And I've treated some of those cases. When it becomes a problem is when the child begins to do that all the time. If you have an 8-year-old that's excessively masturbating, something else is going on. There's some other things that's not being fulfilled in his life. If you have a 6-year-old, and really is it called masturbation when they're that young, or is it
Right,
called playing with themselves?
right.
And we have to allow room for sexual exploration. We have to allow some room for sexual exploration. But it becomes a problem when it begins to disrupt the child's life. And you can tell it, when it begins to affect their relationships, when it begins to affect their school, and they become isolated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about isolated just a little bit. I'm talking about significantly. When you think they're playing the PlayStation, they ain't playing with the PlayStation. They playing with a PlayStation. So my whole point is that know what your children are doing. But Jack, I think the key thing is to have open communication and allow your kids to grow up. Jack, I tell parents all the time, stop bursting into the boys' rooms. Stop just opening doors and trying to catch him. I mean, catch him what?
That's pretty amazing. I mean, I have a son, and I've never ever tried to.
This is happening, and so and the kid. Now,
my
you
son
check this
or
out.
my daughter, for that matter.
The kids are in therapy with me, and I said it's not the child who has the issue.
Right.
You're creating all this anxiety.
Yeah.
All this anxiety.
Yeah. I mean, an adult who clearly has had a child, so they're sexually active, and is not understanding the natural tendencies of developing sexuality, it can be a big problem, and it's often you're going to pass that on to a new generation.
All right.
The next generation.
My youngest son just chimed in. He wanted me to say hi to him. Hi, Leon. How you doing? Let's keep it moving.
Okay.
All right. We're still talking about those things that are disrupting, that are negative. Some children use that as an escape. When you ask some boys why they do it, they'll say it when I'm depressed or when I'm angry. So we have to teach our children healthy alternatives. Are you with me? But Jackie, the only way you can do that is if you understand them and if you're honest with them and they feel comfortable.
Right. And that you have also established a time to have conversations with your children. I mean, are you talking to them about other things? Because then sexuality will be a natural part of conversation with your children. And of course, I don't think it's ever too late to start those conversations, Dr. Miles. Like we said, we have people who have grown up and never had a conversation with their parents about sex. So it'd be very unusual for them.
You ready for the data?
Ready for the data.
Youth between the ages of 14 and 17 years old, around 74% of them masturbate. And the ones who say they don't are lying.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so again, that supports the fact that this is a very natural occurrence. Parents really got to get that in their head first. Masturbation or self-pleasure is not an illness. It's not a sickness. It's not a malformity or anything of that nature. It is natural, and parents need to understand that so that they can support their youth and understand that.
What I don't want us to do, Jackie, I don't want us to get these youth mixed up with men, though, because men have a different number, all right?
Right.
And the men's number is lower because more percentage of them say they don't do it. Now, all men don't have to do it. I mean, there's no requirement.
Right. And of course, as adults, there are many other options available. So that might be why, older men and women may not masturbate as much.
Okay. I think, and as we get this information and we share with people, I'm really happy that we're doing this, Jackie, because I think this is a great service. Jackie, we can't hear you if something is happening. Okay. All right. You went off for a second.
I did.
Say that again if you can.
I said, as adults, of course, we have other options for sexual release, which is what we're going to talk about again when we talk about some of the benefits. But as a 12 or 13-year-old, that's not going to be the case. So yes, it is important to differentiate between children masturbating and adults masturbating, and the fact that we are, of course, are talking about children.
And when we're talking about the language, children don't know the language that you know. For instance, masturbation causes a sexual release of tension, and what happens is ejaculation occurs. The child's going to ask you, what is ejaculation? You have to feel comfortable in calling it what you call it. Are you with me? So parents, the key is practice.
Orgasm, coming, whatever.
Yeah, practice and be descriptive so the child knows what's happening. One teen reported that when he had his first ejaculation, he had no idea of semen. He said he thought he had gotten sick.
Well, that's normal. If you don't know what's coming out of your body and why. Exactly.
So, and guess what? When we talk about girls, we're gonna have the same kind of issue because their bodies secrete things. So the whole point is, parents, I'm not gonna beat you up tonight because I think Jackie and Faithful Father gave me they said, let's teach the parents. So maybe what we'll do is, I'm not saying it before the session, maybe Jackie, you and I have to talk about this. Maybe we'll have a parenting session before we meet with the kids, just talk about, you're feeling comfortable. So our audience who are on, would y'all like us to do that? If you will, text us, I mean, in our chat box, let us know.
Yeah, definitely respond. I do think it's important, though, Dr. Mouse. Whether we have 5 people on or 50 people on, I do think it's a very important session to consider.
Yeah.
Okay. I like this next area that we enter into about some of the myths about
Yes.
masturbation and whether or not it's harmful. Parents, if you don't think that someone has already, if your child is, I'm going to say, older than 7 or 8, really, and you don't think that someone has already said something to your child about self-pleasure, about masturbating, or about some form of sexual engagement, then you're in the dark and you are really fooling yourself.
Really in the dark,
Even if
literally.
your child doesn't have a cell phone, they have friends with cell phones. They have older siblings who have exposed them. Sometimes they have parents who have exposed them. So if you're not engaged, trust me, you are leaving it to someone else, and sometimes a child, to educate your child.
I would love for our parents to ask their children, have you heard of Pornhub? Get ready for the answer, because you're going to fall out your chair. They have heard of Pornhub, and they're on Pornhub at age 8. And the question is, how do they get there? It's information technology. It's information, folk. So parents, come quickly with I don't know the language the kids use. Them at get live or get in the new something, but
oh, that's me. Well, Dr. Miles, I found out from my 22-year-old about, I don't know, a few weeks ago, that there is a cartoon on that deals with adolescent sexuality. It is a series. It's excellent, but it is very descriptive. Give me 1 second, please.
Yeah, your
my phone's ringing.
Yeah. Okay. If you keep going.
Go ahead.
Right.
So it's a very descriptive. They use very descriptive language, but it is also educational. It is talking about those urges and how how children are responding to them and explaining behaviors. So it really is a great show. I'm going to get the name of it. I think it's Big Mouth.
I would use it as a resource, but not as a source of the information.
Well, that's my point. You have to use these things. Well, first of all, you have to know that your children may already have watched the show.
Right.
Because they do share information a lot better than we do. So whether you're sharing it or not, other people are sharing it. But the point is to expose yourself to resources and parents, and to do whatever it takes to make yourself comfortable with the information. And that, again, I've watched it and I found it very informative.
Let's deal with some of the myths, right? Some of the myths still? Okay.
Right. So masturbation will not harm your body. That's a myth that some children are told. Many teens have heard strange but untrue rumors about what it can do, such as you'll go blind.
I guess the eyeglass industry will have a lot of business.
Right. You'll become mentally ill. You will. It will stunt your growth. You'll grow hair or warts on your palms. And some of these things, I must say, I have never heard. They're so outrageous. You'll never have normal sex with another person. Obviously, just not true. You'll run out of sperm and you won't be able to have children. Again, untrue. Other people will know just by looking at you. Insane. Is it bad or dirty to masturbate? Again, questions. And of course, we're saying it is not bad or dirty. It's a normal part of your sexuality. It's a normal part of being a human.
Well, I think the other piece to it, when you talk about this bad and dirty, not many, but some of the parents want to bring religion into it. They want to bring, and they go to the scripture that says, don't let your seed hit the ground. I'm saying, like, okay, that ain't what it meant. All right, that ain't what it meant.
That way.
And so the whole point is, parents, I think what Jackie and I both are really emphasizing is become aware of your role as a parent in helping your child develop sexually healthy, not having inhibitions, not being ashamed, not being hurt, not creating all these issues. Now, again, we're not encouraging, trust me, we're not saying, oh, tell your child you can masturbate. We're not saying that. What we are saying is that it's important that you play the role that you're supposed to be playing, and not only play the role, but also you have factual information, that you have factual information, no myths, and don't go to Bubba, who your cousin, to ask
Right, and
him
don't
about it.
allow children and other people to lead your child in such an important area. I mean, you don't allow it in other areas of their life. You insist that your children go to school to learn their ABCs and their 1, 2, 3s because you feel that they are important. Well, this is, their body,
Yeah.
so it's just as important.
Yes, since we're talking about the teen sexuality, we're gonna, and we were focusing on masturbation. And Jackie, stay where you are. But I want to talk about this. Even just when you teach your children, not teach, when you allow your children to worship their bodies sexually, like for instance, I will wear all these tight clothes. I'm not saying anything is wrong with it. I'm saying make sure they understand the reason and what they're doing. That I'm this sexual creature because I'm fine. Well, so that you want to be, is that what you want to be, a sexual creature? Is that, it sounds like
And
slavery to me.
again, starts early. Little man, he's so cute. The little girls have to be cute. It got to a point where you cannot find flats for 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds that were wearing heels. Of course, as you mentioned, Dr. Miles, our clothing styles are very form-fitting. So that's when you're sending a double message. And of course, years ago, and this is a little bit off, so I'll just make a quick point. When we start putting messages on girls' butts, the pants that sexy, and I'm thinking, do you really want somebody looking at your child's butt? But okay, we do that, but then we don't want to have the conversations about sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
We're sending confusing messages to our children.
Well, we just do that, but they go and buy the pants for them. And even for the boys, I mean, for the boys, it's even these sexually suggestive T-shirts.
Oh,
with the messaging.
Yep.
And so when we start focusing on our children's body, have our children's focus on their body, guess what? That's all they got. They're saying the only thing that's to me that I can offer you is my body.
Right.
And there's some 12 to 18-year-olds, Jackie, that believe that. They don't believe they have anything else to offer. So all their time is spent on how they look.
And so much of that is simply misinformation or the lack of information from a responsible adult.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Conversations. Is it okay not to masturbate? Of course, whether you masturbate or not is up to you. There's nothing wrong with choosing to do it or not to do it, especially again, when you have the information and you can decide.
Let's just talk about that. Let's talk about that for a little bit, because we have a little time still left. And that is it okay to masturbate or not? Parents, you can say it's not, but the natural occurrence is going to happen. You can't stop it.
Right.
You can fuss all you want to.
Ask yourself, do you want to? Because, I mean, sometimes the alternative to masturbating is actually engaging in sexual activity, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't want me to you don't want your child to pleasure themselves, but you want them to engage in sexual activity.
Well, let's give our parents something else to think about, because they got a whole lot more to think about than the child masturbating. Let's somebody make sure he on the virtual school on time. Let's make sure he got a working computer so he can get on virtual computer.
Let's make sure pencil and paper when he gets on. I mean,
So parents, we got a lot to be working on, other than what he's doing in the room,
in the privacy of his or her room. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure you have the privacy. Let's talk about that. Let's stay there for a minute. We have a little time still left, and that is, I have a real issue that it ain't my house, but with parents who don't allow the child to establish some territory. For instance, the rule is, don't enter any door if it's closed without you knocking, unless you suspect drug use, something illegal. Are you with me? Stop just busting in the room. Stop going to your child's room, especially males, and pulling the cover off of them while they're in bed. Come on, I'm trying to wake him up. Parents, just let's not do that. Why are you timing him while he in the bathroom? If he ain't smoking weed, you're okay. Are y'all with me?
And sometimes when he is, when you're okay, but right.
Oh, he in the bathroom too long. What he doing in there? Your business.
Why do you care? Like, right.
Parents.
You know, the other thing too, Dr. Miles, and my dad used to say this to me because, and this was in my 20s, my early 20s, when people would try to report certain things. He would say, you know, I don't need to know everything about my daughter. You know, she's an adult. And of course, we're talking about young adults, but the point is, you don't need details on things like this. You don't need to know how many minutes or how many hours. You know, if there are other signs of concern of it being excessive, you will know. But just in general, in terms of tracking this behavior, that's just not necessary.
I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this from information I'm receiving from my young people. One rule in one parent's house is that in this house, you ain't closing no doors to your room. I said, well, do you have a case of drugs? No, I'm an A and B student. I'm an A and B student. So I said, why you can't close the door? Because they said no doors closed. I said, well, I have safety issues. I close my door and lock it.
But that's also an opportunity to have a conversation about why you can't close the door, Dr. Miles.
Well,
why?
The conversation went like this, because it's our house and we make the rules. I said, have you ever been suspected of bringing drugs? He said, no, absolutely nothing. So the point is, the kid says they think that I'm masturbating. I said, what? And so people, that's why I'm having, this is why I'm having this topic tonight. But check it, this is why I'm having a topic tonight, because I'm getting so much of that. Okay, 1, no closing of doors. 2, why you in the bathroom so long? 3, if you don't wake up, I'm coming in there while you sleep now and pull the cover off you because your door open. I said,
I honestly, Dr. Miles, and I apologize for laughing, but some of this is a surprise to me. Again, it does say that we do need a workshop for parents, probably more than one, because this leads to all sorts of problems down the road. I mean, physical problems it could lead to, mental problems it could lead
anxiety,
to, relationship,
depression,
anxiety. I mean, you just name it. So,
and what happens, they put the children in therapy and they create the problem.
Right, when they actually need to be in therapy. Again, any parents raised with this concept that masturbation is wrong is clearly needs to be corrected.
Jackie, I can tell you part of the problem.
What's that?
Part of the problem, and in the girl series, I'm going to bring this out more also. A lot of parents respond to these children based upon things that have happened to them.
True. You're raising your children to
things that have happened to them.
Life. Right.
Right. And they grew up with faulty information. And Jackie, I'll tell you, you won't be surprised because you know adults. You should just talk to faithful fathers on here. If we were to interview males, grown men, they will tell you they ain't never masturbated because they ain't had to. They always been satisfied. I'm saying, like, in puberty. I mean, so my whole point is that you can't depend upon Uncle Bobo and Grandpa Bill. People, you gotta become educated.
Dr. Miles, that's another conversation about what it means to be a man. And we start forcing these children to be men at an early age. You touched on it earlier. A 12-year-old that's been with 5 people and someone thinks that's positive.
She called him Casanova. Okay. Now,
but that same woman probably wouldn't want a Casanova, someone who is, sleeping with her and 4 other women. So why is it okay for your son if it's not okay for the man in your life?
I ain't telling all their business because I'm not preaching, but she does deal with one. So the point is, my point is that you only teach what you know. And so the reason we're having this, the only thing that we're talking about tonight is that parents become more aware. We're trying to make you aware of being comfortable with content, be comfortable with the conversation. These are just normal parts of living. And someone wrote, they dropped the kids off at therapy. We're in telehealth, so I'm Zooming them just like I'm Zooming you all. And I have 50 clients that I see, and out of the 50, 25 of them are adolescents and male. So the whole issue is that this is where I get this information from, and I'm pretty shocked by it. I'm shocked by it. Now, I don't get into as much with females because I want a female present when you talk to girls about this kind of stuff. Are you with
Right.
me? I want
Right.
a female to lead the conversation. And that's why, Jackie, we're asking for volunteers. If you are working with youth and you have information, we'd love for you to consider being one of our hosts at one of our girl meetings, at one of our male talk meetings, and one of our parent meetings.
Right.
Right?
And Dr. Miles, I also want to go on record saying here, for those parents who feel they don't have any of these issues, and your children are excellent students and they're well balanced, but you have had zero conversation with them about this, right? You do have a problem, because that's the other thing. Oh, my children are great. Never comes up. It should come up. And Dr. Miles, that was a question that I was going to pose for you after, I went over our notes. For our audience, who should be bringing this up? Should you wait until your son or daughter is doing something you don't like? They're certainly not going to come and ask you. So, parents, this is a topic you should be bringing up.
I'm going to treat that, Jackie. I'm going to treat that just like I treat the issue of adoptions and parents who keep the information from their kids that they're adopting. The kid turns 12, then the child hates you for lying to them.
Right.
The point is that you tell your children or have the conversation developmentally. You start talking the conversation as soon as they can comprehend. Are you with me? As soon as a child begins to comprehend, you can break this stuff down. And I ain't talking to my baby about no sex. And not only that, but the boy, 15 years old, I ain't talking about my baby. I said, your baby.
Right.
This boy's got testosterone going throughout his body.
In this time and age, but that same baby's got a cell phone. Probably knows more about it than you do. Let's face it, that happens quite a bit as well.
I think one thing we have to come to grips with, and I don't think we're really there yet, and I hope you guys agree with me, we have not come to grips with our children have total access to the internet, and they ain't just doing research on history.
And they know how to find it a lot quicker than you.
And not only that, can they find it, Jackie, but they can go on the internet and just hit any button. That stuff pops up.
Right. I was about to say, you can type, and it's tuned for a lot of the words that children will look up. Typing a letter wrong will get them to an entirely different website. They know how to reach your children. So that's why we said earlier, you have a 7, 8-year-old that you've not had this conversation and you think they haven't been exposed, you are truly in the dark. And Dr. Miles, I'm going to say, honestly, I believe we're talking 95% of children. I'm going to be very shocked about children who have access to cell phones or classmates with cell phones that have had zero exposure. I'm not sure that I believe that's possible in this day and age.
I don't either.
Yeah.
And so parents, again, our goal was not to beat up on you. Our goal was to bring to your attention how you should really feel comfortable, not should feel comfortable. We're going to help you with that.
Right.
And having this kind of dialogue. And Jack, it's not just this kind of dialogue, it's any dialogue.
Right.
It's about being open, honest, and having reliable information.
Right. And also recognize this really is your responsibility as a parent. Dr. Miles, that's another conversation. We could do a whole series on the things that have been left to quote unquote the education environments. They're doing therapy now and all kind of stuff when they're barely getting to the education piece. But parents, this is a responsibility. That's a human being you're raising. I tell children, you're only a child for 18 to 21 years. And then you spend another, 60 years being an adult? So that time, 0 to 18, is preparation and training. So parents, it's your job. It's your responsibility to have.
I don't think parents, Jackie, really, I don't think they intentionally try to do stuff. But I tell parents all the time, I said, listen, stop telling your son that he is fine as you don't know what. I said, as a mother, you're telling him that he's so fine. I said, what does that mean though?
It's another way of saying you're very sexy.
That's what I'm saying.
And guess what? He's very sexy. So are you encouraging him to go out and have sex?
Well, no, the answer is that when they say that you're so sexy, so that he processes that and he becomes what the mother has spoken.
Exactly.
And Jackie, even with the dad being there, oftentimes dad is silent.
Right. A lot of issues around us discussing sexuality with our kids.
I know we had a lot of comments. You want to read that one from Faithful Father, I think.
I'm not really seeing them yet. Yeah.
He said training starts the moment they're born. You're absolutely right.
So
training starts the time they're born.
And I want to make the point, the training for both the parent and the child.
Yeah.
That training starts for both of you the moment your children are born. Very good point.
It's just very important that we as parents take on this awesome role, the awesome responsibility of parenting. And it doesn't just mean going to church and finishing high school.
And again, I'm going to challenge you. Look around your house right now. What resources have you made available to yourself? Because what's in your house right now is an indication of what you value. And if you're raising a child on a wing and a prayer, keep the prayer, but get some reliable resources and information.
That was powerful. Just look around. Look around what you have access to.
Right. Is there one parenting magazine? And listen, I used parenting magazines because they'll say from 0 to 2, expect this. From 2 to 4, expect this. At least you have some idea. But it's also important that you make available and find your way to resources that also include the cultural relevance of your child, because these are people who understand firsthand what your children will be going through. So get those books, read those books. You don't have to read them cover to cover. Skim through them, pick up a few pieces, but please become educated and seek to do the same for your children.
Well, Jackie, when we have the girls session, I ain't saying a word. I'm not. You better find another female to help you out, because I do want to say some stuff, because I know a whole lot of stuff is going on. But you were great with the boys and with the young men. But again, I want to remind our audience, because our time is moving on. Don't forget now, Saturday, January 30th, we're having male talk for boys from 12 to 18 years of age. It is going to be a Zoom session on Saturday, January 30th, from 1:00 p.m. to 2:00. It's girlfriends 12 to 18 years of age. So the first session is going to be for girls, and we'll send the announcements out, Jackie. We'll send flyers out.
I was going to say, let's let them know that they can come to the page, and then we'll send this information out.
Yes.
Listen, get it out to your students and youth. Let them know. Let's come on and let's have these conversations.
And we're going to think about trying to pull something off for the parents, maybe a 30-minute session before we begin.
Something, Dr. Miles. You can't just tell them to leave them hanging.
Right, parents, you've been absolutely wonderful. Thank you all for not only just parents, but the audience, period, have been absolutely wonderful. Thanks for being with us tonight on such a very interesting topic and a very relevant topic.
Went so fast, didn't it? I mean,
yeah, it did. Let's just raise our children to have healthy lifestyles. No regrets, no guilt, no shame. Right?
Keywords, let's raise our children.
Somebody said I need to be just as vocal on the girls' session. No, I'm tired of Faithful Father. He got a lot of suggestions for me. he needs to be on there.
We're going to add him as a regular guest.
We're going to do that, exactly. But listen, people, I'm out of here. We need volunteers. If you can help us with the girls' talk session and the males, please inbox us. Somebody said, goodbye. Faith, about 2 hours for parents. Goodbye. Love y'all. See you next week.
I agree. Good night.